Why, hello, you beautiful souls. We're kicking off November's theme with an exploration of breathwork. And not only just the power and the potency of it, but to also provide the styles of breath that I experience and practice. So you can have the tools to really utilize this most potent type of, I would say, experiment that anyone can do in their lifetime. Breathwork is the easiest way to have transcendental, mystical, spiritual experiences, but also somatically heal the body and transmute all types of wounds and definitely bring up things that are even in your blind spot. So I highly recommend you tap into this series. It's going to be a juicy one. So don't forget to give the video a like and a little thumbs up, and we'll get to it. So always got my notes for these ones. Yeah, we're going to be diving into my first journey today, and also going to be giving you a little teaser of the second one and kind of like what this pathway of breathwork and pranayama opened up for my life. Now, I will give a full big disclaimer here that I find the success that I've had, excuse me, let's wet the whistle. My body's already starting to clear out and clean out. This is the first day of 7 from my quarterly water fast. So it is just getting rid of things it's meant to. But yeah, so big disclaimer about, I would say, the experiences that I have during these types of like journeys is I give all the credit to the 3 primary awakenings that I went to. And if you haven't seen those, I dropped them in the description, so definitely check them out. And the reason why I say that is when you're at a point where you're not distracted by mind and thought, that will often take you out of the experience or put more of like a judgment persecution onto it. It allows you to really just drop into the body deeper. So even if you haven't gone through the other 2 primary awakenings, I would always suggest like really sitting with your mind before you go into a breath work and just give the body the task of the breath and ignore all thoughts. Because I've found that more people check themselves out of their own experience and they don't get to those points of the breakthrough. And another aspect of that overcoming the horse or the temptations of the body is it can get uncomfortable in breath work. What is it? You can have the tetanus where your hands go all like and just things start to cramp up just because like over oxygenation of the body. But when you're actually in that position of the writer, it just allows you to take that step back so you can witness the experience that's unfolding. So I always recommend, if you haven't checked out those videos, definitely peep out the first one, The Awakening the Mind, just to get a reference frame of what it means to kind of live when you're not identified and attached with your mind and the thought forms that come across the view. Because that's what allows you to sit back and just kind of watch the show play out, and also gives the body its freedom to allow the bodily intelligence to operate. So I'd always say, again, like the experiences for the rest of this month are always going to be prefaced with this note, because every time I drop in for a breath work and I've had a breath work ceremony and journey, it has always been some type of like profound realization and straight up mystical experience, spiritual experience. So with that, we'll fast forward to it. Now, 2018 was the awakening of the gut, and we're going to essentially just go through the Saturn return happening. So 29, 30, 31, because I really didn't start getting into breath work until I was 32 or 31, technically, going on 32. And those 3 years, so much had happened. I had been separated from my ex-wife for a little bit and then essentially took her back and gave it almost like a full year to kind of figure things out. Things were not figured out, and I ended up divorcing her. So I went through separation, divorce, and, a whole summer of kind of gallivanting Peter and getting back out in the world. And again, mind you, a lot of spiritual work in between this time, 3 years really assimilating the different awakenings and what that meant for me in life and how I related with God, creator, my own beingness, what my purpose was, continuing to work with clients. Like there was a lot of nuggets of life condensed into those 3 years. And I got into like qigong heavily, and I was really mastering that aspect of my own energy system. So we fast forward to September, which kind of like kickstarted this series of doing things to heal the body and heal the wounds that were coming up somatically. And it was like divorce was finalized on, I believe, September 6th of 2021. And then, a few days later, on the 11th, my father passed away. And then that had its own bag and can of worms of things to unpack with the family unit. And it got me into this realm of knowing that like there was a lot of wounds that were coming up that needed to be addressed and healed in different ways. And the woman that I was dating at the time, we'd all been in the spiritual community, and I got introduced into, some different space holders, and they were holding an event, and it was a breathwork ceremony. So we fast forward to now March 1st, where I had gone through, my first experiences of dancing, ecstatic dance, and really getting into the body and continuing my own qigong practice and unfolding life. And I was just really just diving deep into this integration component to the spiritual teachings and these spiritual revelations and things that I had gone through. So that's where we kind of set the stage for the breathwork journey, is that it really represents the somatic healing to the intangible and spiritual healing that had gone on with, the path of ascension, the path of awakening, the path of unfoldment. So Friday, March 1st rolls around, and excuse me, Friday, March 25th, that was the first. Notes here. So it's Friday, March 25th, and going solo to this breathwork ceremony, no expectations, no idea what was really going to go on. I didn't even actually know about tetanus. I think I've read his introductory video, or like the person who's holding it, he did like a little like this is what you may experience, and I did that like right before I went to the actual ceremony, so didn't really retain too much information. So I was really fresh, and I was cool with that. It was another little initiation. Now, the practice of breath that we were instructed on was really to treat it like the tides, to treat it like the ocean. So it was just allowing things to expand fully in the lungs and then contract fully, and to allow yourself to get into a nice rhythm and flow. Now, the moment that we started the ceremony, I noticed that things started to go a little bit quicker. I was breathing in pretty rapidly and exhaling pretty rapidly. And time is a tough one for this one. It was about an hour and a half ceremony, an hour, I think, of breath work itself. And I would say in the first portion, um, probably like 5 minutes, 10 minutes in, that's when I started to get like, the lock claw, the lobster claw. And the body started to get incredibly uncomfortable. And then I observed the mind getting really frantic, and it started to almost act like it was, pacing. The person was playing a bunch of different musical instruments, and my head was actually really close to a gong. And I was probably about like, like 2 feet away. Like I could definitely reach out and grab it. And as the gong started to intensify, I just simply told the body, let go. And when I finally just had everything drop and that statement was made internally, everything went quiet. It was almost as if I was sitting in a float tank. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, if you've had that experience of kind of resting on top of the water, you kind of feel like you're in this little cocoon. That had gone down, and I instantly started to feel just energy flowing. From my practice of qigong, I knew what, like the main channel of kind of going from like the perineum up the back of the spine, top of the head, down the tip of the nose. And I had felt that cycle and that loop kind of getting stronger and stronger. And then everything just kind of went into the heart space and out my back between my shoulder blades. And when that happened, I felt this kind of ripple and wave from the tips of my toes, kind of wrapping underneath the soles of my feet, going up the Achilles tendon. And it was the most wild experience of just like branching out. And I could just feel like the entire posterior part of my back just have this vast network, what I now know, of meridians. Every meridian was just firing off, and every channel of my chi and life force was so tangible. And it was the first time that I'd actually felt my energy in the back of my body, which I now know is very much so aligned with receiving energies. And we'll do a little breakdown after this, but when that went down, it kind of again like crawled all the way up to the top of the head and then instantly just went shot down throughout the whole body. And then now not only the posterior chain of the meridians was activated and fully felt, just every meridian in my body was fully felt. And I felt electrified. And instantly in those moments of like when it finally hit every aspect of the body, I felt so large. And then boom, it's over. Breathwork's done. He winded us down, and I'm just sitting there, just like blissed out, vibrating. And they tell us to kind of get up slow, and I try to lean up, and I want to kind of like grab my journal, and I go and kind of take a step and like lift my foot up, and it feels like I have platform shoes on, like about that big, and I misstepped. So like I'm stumbling, I'm just like, oh, I need to lay back down. And I laid back down probably for another like 10, 20 minutes. The owner of the place who was hosting it and my partner's friend at the time, we just like chop shop like after that, stayed till close. I was just super elated and just high vibing. And what I came to experience was really the first time that I had chosen consciously to allow my body to receive healing. And of course, it comes in a different way because I was always expecting healing to be something that someone did to me. But this was the first time that I actually allowed the body to use its primordial and innate transformative tool of the breath. So when things were activating, it kind of kickstarted this, like, yeah, I'm all about this pathway. And I ended up following up and doing another breathwork journey from the same facilitator on another Friday, April 22nd, following month. And this one was pretty similar. Ever since that moment of things getting activated, energy was very sensitive to perceive. It was very tangible in the sense of it felt like a lot of, the dipole pushing magnets. And usually I just was very comfortable feeling my own energy, but now I could feel like everything. So when the second breath work arose, I was expecting some type of, let's send that back. Let's level up the system again. Let's go Super Saiyan 2. And this was really my first, I would say, I don't want to say like out of body because it wasn't necessarily an out of body experience, but the second journey in April was more so the picture, but it was different aspects of like life. It was reality. And what had come up, I was seeing my body in one little screen and feeling the inner experience of the body, which was really, I would say, large energetically, but felt very hollow. And then in the opposite corner, I was feeling emotions still in my body, but emotions from when I was a child, and a lot of fear and a lot of confusion and just like heartbreak and sadness. And then in front of that, it was or I should say on top, I was experiencing essentially reliving one of the first real traumatic experiences of my parents fighting when I was like 4 or 5. And across from that, it was just kind of like black and fuzzy. There was nothing going down in like that bottom left screen, but it just was almost echoing like the intensity of that experiential one. And mind you, I was in the second one just kind of with this expectation of, oh yeah, I'm just going to be feeling this energy work. And then all of a sudden I'm feeling large, little vibrating, and then boom, I'm just witnessing all these things at once happening. Just simultaneous experience. And some tears flowed down. And it wasn't like I was like weeping or anything like that, but it was like eyes welled up and I started to cry a little bit. And then the coolest part about all that, excuse me, is that when the experience itself had been like played back, it was just like a washing away. Like all that energy was kind of just sitting on top, and it literally just flowed out from the side of me. And after that, I was pretty much hooked. I went back to that recognition of, oh, wow, this is a lot more potent than I even realized. And the things that I didn't know I was holding on to were able to be released. And the rest of the journeys also get pretty trippy and even more mystical. But I felt like this first one and a little teaser for the second just goes to show the impact that this simple practice can bring. And both of those journeys, again, the breath was really just in and out, really simultaneously filling up that lower and upper lung as much as you can, and then releasing. And I would say the most trippy aspect of it is just how rhythmic it became with the body once I overcame those first moments of tension and the tetanus. And that's really the encouragement here, is that when you can recognize that your breath is like pumping the brakes and accelerating, then you can start to control it so you don't have to have as much of like a tension point where you want to fall back and just kind of quit or get caught up in mind and painful things of that nature. So you can really kind of like build yourself up slowly. And ever since those practices, I always do some type of breath work. Um, Not necessarily breath journeys so much anymore unless I'm in a ceremony, but that call has been coming up more and more. And that's also one of the inspirations for this month, is to facilitate and to attend some more different breath journeys, just because this is such a powerful and potent practice. And one encouraging factor that I would say that everyone can utilize right now is just bringing it back to the conscious breath. In the satsangs and meditations, I always teach it as, put your thumbs on your belly button and just kind of let them hang down, and that's about your diaphragm, that lower lung, and just breathe in from there first, then fill up the upper lung, and then kind of work your way back down, upper lung, then lower lung. And the more you can practice breathing like that, you bring yourself back into our infant breath or our natural state of breathing. And from here, that's really what activates, and this is more of like putting on the nerdy science classes, this is what really activates like the vagus nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, where we essentially simulate that fight, flight, fawn, freeze response within our body through the breath. And then that is what kind of is the key that unlocks all of these different opportunities for healing. So that's kind of like your little cheat code that will be explored even more, because there's various types of breath, and breath work doesn't always need to be really intense. And that was really cool with these first two journeys, is that the breath that I found was really just juicy, was just this really, just listen to the tides as if the tide's getting pulled out and then coming back in, pulling out, coming back in. And it was just it was a beautiful ebb and flow. And it's gonna blow your mind. So if you haven't practiced yet, I highly recommend just sitting on the floor, sitting on the ground, and just exploring the breath. Infant breath I just mentioned. Box breathing is also a really, I would say, a lot more of a gentle approach into it. And it's I call it the 4 seasons, and it's probably called that in some text somewhere. But you essentially just treat each portion of your breath as the same duration. So you breathe in from that same like lower lung, lower dantian, that infant breath. You fill up the lungs, you hold, filled up with air, same duration that you took to breathe in, and then you exhale, slow, same duration again, and then you hold empty. And if you can practice that one, it's going to relax the body. It's going to really bring you into a very just chill state. And then there's various types of forms of just like the where you're taking in more oxygen, then you just kind of hold your breath and let all of that dissipate. And that can just kind of dial down the energy and help regulate. So through this journey this month, we'll explore a few different breaths with each video. But I highly recommend you start with the infant breath. And with that, that's kind of that one. These ones are a lot shorter and sweeter. There's a few of them that are going to get a little long, but this one to start off is really more so an introductory into the healing potential. You can go into it even if you're a master practitioner of Qigong or any type of energy practice, and it can actually level up your capacity to not only perceive your own energy, but to perceive the energy of others. When you really lean into the unknown of this type of work, you can have stuff come up that you didn't realize you were holding on to. And that to me is always the most important, because you allow the body to heal and release the things that it was protecting you, the spirit and soul, from. And that is the reason why we have to see the spiritual awakening and ascension journey as just as much as grounding that wisdom through the various healing modalities. And breathwork is a cheat code. If I could ever say that there is, a little like shortcut to just therapy, deeper psychological and spiritual wounds, and healing all those and transmuting those, you can do it sober, and we were born with it. I mean, it makes sense though, right? Breath is so important. It's the first thing we do and it's the last thing we do, right? Take a breath in, take that breath out. It was like Creator was trying to design something with us being made of the breath and of sound. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. I've got a few more minutes down to chat with people. And don't forget to hit that thumbs up and like if you can. Be so kind. But I'm excited for this one. You guys can get a little teaser now. So the rest of this month is going to be breath work. And then December is going to be a lot of more of the extraterrestrial experiences that I've had. We're going there. But there has definitely been some mystical and otherworldly experiences I've had in my life. Enough to have 4 to talk about. So and when it comes down to the healing with breath work, I just want to bring it back to, you don't have to always go somewhere to do a breath journey. You can do them at home. I think one of the more potent practices that I've done is actually been just thrown on a playlist and just doing it myself, just being, in my space, my safe space. And it wasn't a mystical experience, but it was incredibly healing and nourishing. That's why we're not talking about that one this month, but I would say that it is therapeutic to bring your body back into alignment with what it was always intended to, and that is to be a master of the breath. Another fun nerdy fact that we're tapping into the bio degree here, where when Earth was so abundant in like the giant plants and the giant fauna and things, it was because there was so much oxygen in the air. And with that, we as humans could run for days without getting tired. And as everything operates, that aspect of oxygen, the ether itself, we get bigger, we get taller, we get stronger, and so did the rest of existence on this plane. So it goes to show the importance of breath and pulling in that oxygen. Now, if you really want to take your, I would say, application of pranayama or breath work to the next level, I would say start your day in your morning and end your night by getting some fresh air and just souping up your body with oxygen. I know this more so from the personal training lens, that there are a lot of people that experience snoring, that have like sleep apnea and just things of that nature, where they're not getting as much oxygen in their sleep as they need to. And juicing up your brain morning and night is a really low key but drastic way to elevate your mood, your sleep, your just energy for the day. And again, it's the breath. It's free. I can't preach it enough, but I highly, 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 highly recommend it. I hope that this video inspired you to dabble in the power of your own breath. Work them lungs. I'm grateful because I grew up playing trumpet and then I smoked for years. And so both of those, 1-2 punch, a lot of lung capacity. And If it's one thing that you find is something that is lacking in your life, there's always ways to test that, to challenge it. Just holding your breath, wearing an elevation mask. I still train with an elevation mask when I do jump rope, and essentially it's just oxygen restriction. And then also, fun little exercise, don't pass out, but you hold your breath and then you just run and do things. Like, all of these are great ways to build your lung capacity, which will inevitably help with your breathwork practice, because the more that you get used to breathing in that lower dantian, that infant breath, the better you control your diaphragm, and then you can really work the pump. And then the better that you have the control over that and the more capacity that you have to breathe, you can start to experiment with holding your breath in between all these inhales, and you'd be surprised how many minutes you can hold your breath for. So with all that, I'm just rambling at this point. I'm going to get rolling here. When it's the water fast, I notice the mouth tends to let me know when we're done talking because it's getting a little cotton mouthy. But with that, may the fruit of knowledge offer a seed, and in that seed may your love, will, and intuition give life and nourishment. For a tree shall grow, and in its shade may you find peace, and offer peace to all whom ask. Namaste. I love you so much. Don't forget to share. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Little call to action if you can, super close to getting monetized. Play that meditations playlist, play all, let that run all day. It would mean a lot. And other than that, have a great night. Peace. I love you.